We're live on X, Rumble, YouTube, wherever else we're live. About to be live on Rockfin as well. Give that one a second to get going.
You said Facebook too, right?
Yes. Well, I
Heck
thought
yeah.
we were live on Rockfin.
Welcome, Facebook fan.
Facebook also. We're definitely live on Facebook.
Nice.
We're supposed to be live on. That's weird. Okay, so we're not live on Rockfin. There's been a little bit of confusion. So, all right, that's beside the point. We're here. We're doing a show. We'll worry about Rockfin later. Yeah, we'll worry about that later. All right, let's kick it off now. After that weird start there, government corruption, murder, cover-ups. What's going on in Cascade, Montana? Joining me to talk about that today is Jake Green, who is hosting a podcast called The Cascade Effect, which is about what you believe might be a cover-up of sorts going on involved with, from my understanding, a police-involved shooting where the suspect died, and I believe self-defense is the claim, but you guys believe there might be something a little more to what's actually going on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. We don't think the story that they have concocted is true at all. We've been able to prove very specific aspects of what they claim to be false. And basically, it just came down to the government investigating itself and then saying, okay, it was a good shoot, which, when the government investigates itself, nothing productive happens.
Right. So tell us what just happened from the official story about this, the suspect, who it was, why the cops were there in the first place, and just what ultimately happened that led to the death of this person who shouldn't be dead right now.
Yeah. I mean, the craziest part is the man who died, his name is Mike Hansen. He wasn't even the suspect. He had nothing to do with anything that was going on. And so basically what happened was there's a woman named Pam Polieski. It's hard to pronounce her name. No one really knows. I've heard it pronounced like 10 different ways. But basically she had a court case pending for animal cruelty. She ran a no-kill shelter that got shut down in 2020. And so for 4 years, she's been waiting to go to trial. And basically her bond was that she wasn't allowed to own or basically not allowed to possess any animals. Okay. And then someone saw her at a Walmart purchasing cat food and kitty litter.
God forbid.
Which she then delivered to a property she owned but was not living at. She was living in an apartment in town, and she delivered it to this man, Mike Hansen, who was living on her property. It was his residence. She was renting it out to him. And he had one dog, and then there were feral cats running around.
Yeah.
And so deputy sheriff reported this, the purchase of cat food and kitty litter. They then applied for a search warrant to go to the property, showed up without the search warrant before it had been issued to them.
And you said this was earlier this year, right?
This was in February of this year. Yeah. They showed up to the property with no warrant, just one man, just one deputy. And they had a short interaction, at which point the deputy said that Mike Hansen pulled a gun on him, and Try pulled his weapon, fired once. It then had a malfunction. He cleared the malfunction, fired again while Mike was shooting at him. So that was the official narrative.
So self-defense, they show up,
Yeah.
serve a warrant because of a lady. It wasn't even for this other guy, it sounds like.
Yeah, not at
It
all.
was for this lady who wasn't supposed to have cats. So it was a seemingly minor crime, probably a misdemeanor.
Yep, it's a misdemeanor.
And for some reason, the guy on an adjacent or next door property ends up outside in a gunfight of sorts. if you will. Not even a gunfight, but for some reason the target of the police who arrived
Yeah.
by association.
Yeah, I mean, so it was the property. So he was living on her property. She owned it, but it was his residence, and it was his legal residence. They knew he lived there, but basically, yeah, they showed up and confronted him. He came down to see who it was. They had a whole exchange in which he demanded to see the warrant because they told him to get off the property, or Detective Try told him to get off the property. He said, "No, show me the warrant." And he said this multiple times. Try refused to produce the warrant because Try didn't have the warrant. And Mike started walking away. And that's when Try jumped the fence, supposedly saw a gun, and they shot at each other.
Okay, and the officer shot first. To what this in the official story?
So in the official story, the officer shot first,
Yeah.
which is probably the only 100% true thing that the officer witnessed to.
What did the officer say was the reason for pulling his weapon?
He said that as soon as he was in the air, he realized he had no escape. And while he was in midair, he saw the suspect, who was not a suspect, pull a revolver out of his pocket, even though he was walking away. Saw him pull a revolver out of his pocket and
Slow
point it out.
motion, midair slow motion. I guess
Yeah,
he must have.
that's what I'm picturing in my head every
Yeah.
single time that I hear the testimony.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean that on the surface certainly sounds like definitely a situation that makes you want to ask questions.
Yeah.
Before going into some of the things that you've discovered in this investigation, how did you get your attention called to this story?
Yeah, I'm currently moving up to Montana. My legal residence is up there now, actually. And I went to my first Cascade County Libertarian Party meeting, and the sons of this man who had been killed had been working with the Libertarian Party up there to
Interesting.
investigate it. And so I met them, heard the story, saw the evidence. They didn't know where to go from there. Like they know how to mount a small investigation, but they didn't know how to get it out to the public.
Right.
And I just happened to be there that night, and I
How
said,
many people are in that town? Not to interrupt.
Great Falls. So Great Falls is about 60,000 people.
Okay, 60,000
Yeah,
people.
yeah. This happened on the outskirts of
And how old was this man who got killed?
uh, late 60s. I want to say
Late
like
60s.
7. Yeah,
And he had done nothing, and he was I think a grandfather. I heard
he
at
was a
one point during one
grandfather.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, grandfather. He was retired military police, so he knew his rights.
Yeah.
He worked at I believe nuclear missile silos back in the day during his service, and his service is actually something that we're having a hard time finding. Um, we're having a hard time finding out what he did. He didn't talk about it very much, and it's hard to dig that up. So we're unsure, but he was military police.
Yeah. Okay. So not a question of confusion or somebody who didn't know
Correct.
his rights, as you mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you met his children at a libertarian meeting, and you guys got to talking.
Yeah, they were very apprehensive at first. They're very private people. They do not like all this attention. Mike Hansen would not have liked all this attention, according to everything I've learned about him. But he seems to be a very good example. Like he stood up for exactly what his rights were, and it ended with his demise, which is incredibly unfortunate and tragic. But he did exactly what citizens are supposed to do, because according to James Dutton, lawyer here in Georgia, the rights you don't stand up for and the rights you don't advocate for are the rights you lose. And Mike Hansen knew his rights, stood up for his rights, and ended up dead because of it.
Okay, yeah. And after meeting them and deciding to pursue to shed light on this, because there's a lot of good police officers in the world. They're not a monolith. You know,
100%.
that goes without saying. But there is also corruption. That's apparent. Everybody knows that. And you decided to pursue this, to look into what was going on. And I know you have a few people who are helping you on the podcast. Who are the people that you met? How did you meet them? And then we'll go into some of the details of, because I know you played some audio from some of the testimony. And with my background in law school, like seeing all that, I just have so many questions about what was going on in that courtroom and how it played out. And I want to start with how you got together with all the people who helped you and who they are.
Yeah, so they had been working on this case for about 3 or 4 months before I happened to join in. The head of the Libertarian Party in Cascade County is a guy named Tony Rosales. He's a speech and debate coach there. He's a PhD. He's a very bright guy. He is the brains behind most of it, and the brawn behind most of it is Kevin Leatherbarrow, who's part of the Cascade County Libertarian Party, and he's a teacher, educator up there who runs a very unique type of school. And so they'd been doing research and trying to form basically trying to form a committee to investigate it and bring this into the public eye. And they partnered with the Montana Citizens Council on Judicial Accountability. A guy named Bart Crabtree helps with that organization. And it's basically trying to keep judges and the whole legal system accountable to whatever actions they happen to perform. And so there's a few good organizations that are helping out, and definitely a lot of really good people spending hours and hours and hours behind the scenes.
So it's people who are credible, who have a background in this stuff,
Yeah.
and understanding of it, not just random people off the streets who sometimes also have good information. But I just wanted to illustrate that you have a group here together here who's been looking into this, and they have some expertise and knowledge about this type of thing.
Yeah, they're both PhDs. They're both very smart, intelligent, dedicated people, especially in the cause of liberty.
Good comment here. In a side force, Mommy says the LP can be really great for organizing, especially at the local level when they don't get in their own way. And she complimented you on getting involved up there and actually doing something. And I think that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So tell us about what some of the holes in their story are.
So the biggest hole is whenever there's a shooting and a death, what happens is something called a coroner's inquest, where the coroner it's kind of like a mini trial, but there's nobody arguing the opposite side.
So that's why there was no defense attorney.
Correct. There's no defense attorney. It's literally just a small jury. I think 8 people, 6 people. I don't know, 6 to 8 people, with the district attorney. And he calls up witnesses. And so the witnesses were the coroner, the sheriff, the deputy, a bunch of the other people who were involved with the cleanup and the response and all that. And so the biggest hole is the topic of the warrant. So the sheriff who ran as being a constitutional sheriff. He used to be a Democrat, flipped Republican, said, I'm a constitutional sheriff. I'm going to join the constitutional sheriffs of the United States.
What was his name again?
Jesse Slaughter.
Okay, Jesse Slaughter was his name.
Yeah.
Running as a constitutional sheriff.
Yeah.
Okay,
he's still the sheriff. He's still there. And he, in his testimony during the coroner's inquest, said it is not necessary for you to have the warrant when you show up to serve a warrant. It only bolsters your case. Mike Hansen was legally required to step off the property just because Detective Try said he was getting a warrant, which is 100% incorrect and not true.
And when you say that, going back to this coroner's inquest,
Yep,
this is how they determine the finality of what had the conclusion of this trial is based on this, with no, I guess there's no you can't have a defense attorney when there's no defendant, really. I guess the defendant would actually be the police department.
So the idea of these coroner's inquests is to look into whether or not the deputy did anything illegal,
Okay.
and they found him not guilty on all counts.
Yeah.
Which, and they also, not only that, they awarded him the Purple Heart because he was wounded in the event.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the biggest one is the warrant. That's what we're really focused on, is because he should never have been there. He had 10 days to serve the warrant, and he chose to, within 3 hours, show up at the property without backup, without a whole bunch, without half his equipment, no cameras, no nothing, and
No
shoot
body
him
cam.
down. No body cam. He had a body cam issued to him, but he didn't show up with it.
Yeah. And why did he decide that he needed to jump the fence and go after somebody who was not even the target of the warrant that he did not have in hand?
Yeah. So personally, I think it's his ego. I think he saw a man who was exerting his rights, walking away from him, and I think his ego couldn't handle it, that a guy wasn't doing what he told him to do. That's the most logical conclusion I can come to at this point. There are some theories out there that they wanted Mike dead to begin with. Mike was on record saying multiple times that he feared for his life and thought the sheriff's department was out to kill him. And so I haven't found any substantial proof of that theory yet, but it is something we're looking into.
What did he express fear about?
So he and Pam, whose property he was staying on, had been friends for a very long time, had even dated for a while. And the sheriff's department has treated her extremely unfairly in these animal abuse cases. She was a no-kill shelter where she would take in dogs that were terminally ill, had massive injuries, and she took care of them as best she could, but they were going to end up dying anyway. And so basically the sheriff's department raided her property, found a bunch of, found, I think, 16 out of the over 200 animals. 16 out of the 200 animals were in bad condition or dead. And the other 180 plus were either overfed or in good condition. But they got her on the 16 saying that she abused these animals. And so they shut her down. She then went to court and recently was found not guilty on those counts, which is fantastic, like 2 weeks ago. And he was closely associated with her. So he would have interactions with the police whenever they were at her property. And so there were times when they would show up in the middle of the night, shine lights through his windows, and then just leave. And then there were times when they would show up unannounced and he would be with somebody and he would swear up and down that if the person he was with wasn't there, the cops would have killed him that time. So he was convinced that the cops were out to kill him.
Because he felt an ongoing harassment and seemingly on the backs of some charges against his landlord.
Yeah.
That were ultimately dismissed.
And the craziest thing is he was the star witness in her case that she was not abusing these animals. And he ended up dead a few months before the trial.
Yeah.
Which is, it's very suspect. It's very weird. And they had been out to get this woman for at least 15 years.
Interesting. Yeah, I was about to ask what the background is on the connections between these two and the police officers, especially knowing the little bit about his background that we know. Is there a lot of crime in that town?
Cascade County is per capita. It is a top 10 most corrupt county in the United States as far as people getting convicted of crimes they never did.
So there's a lot of crime on the enforcer's side.
Yes.
It sounds like.
Yes.
Why? Do you have any idea why that might be? Just speculation about why that might be?
Speculation, I think that it's a hard one to speculate on. It could be a number of reasons, but I think it's kind of a slippery slope kind of deal where in a smaller town, it's much easier to have a heavy hand, especially if a lot of people, a lot of citizens are complaining about the same things or worried about the same things. It's easier to be like, okay, we're going to have a heavy hand on this particular crime, this particular crime, this particular crime. And then over time, I think that just bleeds into everything.
Yeah.
Especially as more and more people move to that town and it becomes more of a city than a town and um, less like rural America and more like, an actual big city.
Yeah.
It like Great Falls has become more and more crime ridden since over the past like 10 years since people started moving there in droves to Montana, specifically to a few of the bigger cities. So I don't know what the exact cause of all that corruption is, but it is there and it's provable and we have the stats to back it up.
How old was the police officer who shot him?
Oof. He's my age, so he's 36-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we went and reenacted this. We reenacted the whole shoot, me and Kevin, who's part of the podcast.
Interesting.
I put on a bulletproof vest. I had a fake gun in my back pocket. I hopping that fence. I mean, it's chest high on me. Like
Yeah, I
I'm
was gonna say, how
I'm
high
six
is it?
foot tall, and it took all my effort to hop the fence in a bulletproof vest with weapons on me. And
Is it sturdy, the fence?
no, it's a janky old fence.
Like a
It's a
metallic,
gate.
like an
Yeah,
old
it's
fence?
basically
Yeah.
a gate. So it's a swing gate,
And the
and
gate
so
was locked? Is that why you didn't go through the gate?
it was locked. The funny thing is, 1 foot to the left is a pass through that you can just walk through.
But he
But
he
he
chose to
chose
jump
to jump.
over when you said he had nobody there. He didn't Why didn't you wait on anybody to come?
That's something we don't know. He claims that he was worried Mike was going to tamper with evidence.
So this sounds like there's a lot of history built up there that played into whatever. I don't know if you know how long this officer had been on the police force, but obviously he was made aware about whatever the past was
Mm.
about these two people, and that might have created a sense of urgency, or maybe he's just one of those people who has that sense of eagerness to draw his weapon. I don't know, but it certainly sounds like a situation that the police force would want to quickly dispose of.
Yes. I mean, they proceeded with this coroner's inquest so quickly and so like it went away
That blows
so
my
fast.
mind, by the way. The fact that you can close the book on one of these things by having a coroner's inquest where everybody's on the same side, determining, that the
Yeah.
police didn't do anything wrong.
Dude, it's wild. I don't really understand it either. I don't know how there isn't somebody in the room who is advocating for the person who got shot. And not to
Right.
mention, during the coroner's inquest, they referred to Mike as the suspect when he wasn't on the warrant. He had nothing to do with anything. He was just a guy who was exerting his rights on his own property.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess he became the suspect in their minds through the process of it, and it sounds like might have been a suspect for something for quite some time now.
Yeah. I mean, the history with the sheriff's department and this family in particular actually go back a little further, where the son, Tim, son of Mike Hansen, had a run-in with the sheriff. He wasn't sheriff at the time, but he became Sheriff Jesse Slaughter. And basically, what happened was Tim was outside with his family. His little daughter was running up and down the street. Sheriff came, or Officer Slaughter came by and saw that this little girl was by herself next to a busy road. Um,
So Officer Slaughter approached a girl who's by herself on a busy road. Continue.
tries to scoop up the girl. Tim sees it happening and goes and takes his daughter from this man who's not in uniform, plain clothes, runs back into his apartment, goes into his apartment building, goes in through his door, tries to shut the door. Officer Slaughter puts his foot in, who again is in plain clothes, puts his foot in the door, shoves it open, draws his weapon, and points the gun at Tim's wife and kid. At which point,
Jeez.
Tim loses it on him and can like full on attacks him. And Tim ended up getting arrested and having to pay a massive amount of money in order to be released.
Do this precinct or these officers, do they have a history of other behavior like this?
So we're looking into that. We have had at least 10 people so far come forward and say this has happened to me as well, or something similar, or just abuse of their position in general. And so we're going to devote an entire episode to showing how many people that the sheriff's office has negatively affected in a way that they should never have affected them at all.
And have you found that by doing the podcast? So you have 4 episodes out now. Is that correct?
3 episodes out right now.
And where can people find it?
Literally anywhere. The most watched site is Facebook. The Cascade Effect on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, what have you.
I told Jake before the show that I searched Cascade, Montana corruption, and the Google AI, the first thing it told me about was the Cascade Effect. So it's there to be seen. And judging by the comments on your videos and stuff, there's a lot of people in that town who are excited, or not, I don't want to say excited, but they're glad you're looking into it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, has this helped provide tips? Have people come to you after finding out about the podcast to provide this information?
People within the sheriff's department have come to us with.
Really?
Yeah. The biggest one we got was, it wasn't, Detective Try was not in a patrol car. He was in his own personal vehicle, which says a lot about how rushed he was in order to actually get to the property. And it adds
Quick
another
question. Is this an expansive where it takes like 20 minutes to get anywhere? This part of town, like,
yeah, so from the sheriff's office, it'll take about 20 minutes to get to the property.
Okay, so continue.
Yeah. But it basically proved that he lied in the coroner's inquest. Again, the past episode that we released was far less cinematic and more like a traditional podcast, like you and me talking. It was me and the 3 main people who are looking into it, sitting down and analyzing the coroner's inquest line by line and showing how many times the witnesses and the district attorney lied.
Right. Yeah. You guys go through the audio. You
Yeah.
play the audio from the what's it called again?
Coroner's
The coroner's
inquest.
conquest or some weird thing. Whatever this very strange thing seemed designed only to exonerate the police happens. And then, there's a question here that I was thinking the same thing. Has anybody from the sheriff's department started messing with anybody involved or with you guys?
Yeah, actually. They have definitely made their presence known to people that are involved with the podcast. So they'll show up at random times. They'll stop in front of people's cars. Specifically, Bart Crabtree is the one who they have seemed to have followed the most. And he's with the Montana Citizens Council on Judicial Accountability. So he already has a reputation in the state as somebody who will stand up to law enforcement and stand up to judges for not doing what they're supposed to do. So they have not come at us full tilt yet, but we're taking proper precautions to make sure that nothing actually happens to us.
Okay, a couple questions. What do you mean stopping in front of cars? Their police car stopping in front of cars?
Yeah, their police car will pull up directly in front of a vehicle, stop for about 10 seconds, and then drive off.
Then they'll look at him and they'll drive off. And they're familiar with this guy. Has he been harassed in the past for other investigation that he's been involved in?
That's a good question. I believe once or twice he was arrested falsely. He served multiple years in jail for a crime that he never committed. So he's one of those people that's on that statistic. So he has a personal problem with the law in Montana, of course, as anyone would if they spent over a year in prison.
Yeah.
for something they didn't do.
Oh, he did. He spent a year in prison.
Almost 2 years, I think,
Wow, on charges that were he
that
was
were later
convicted.
dropped. Yeah,
Wow.
or reversed.
Okay, so I can definitely see where there can be some tension there.
Yeah.
Um, uh, um, I had a question just slipped my mind, but okay, we're talking about the police kind of bothering you guys, which I was curious about, especially in a place. He said it's kind of getting towards big city, but it feels like almost small time cops in a place that's starting to get bigger and bigger. Is
Yeah.
that a good way to describe it?
100%. Yeah, it's still small time. Like you still feel like you're in a small town. It's a lovely town. I like it in Great Falls. It's wonderful.
The people who contacted you from the sheriff's office, were they anonymous?
No, they contacted me through Facebook, which is how I figured out they were part of the sheriff's office. Uh,
And has there been, have they said, are they okay speaking about this?
they will not. I can't disclose who they are. They
Right.
prefer me not say anything about who they are,
So
but they have
you're protecting your sources, is what you're saying.
protecting the sources,
That's
man.
good,
Like,
especially in a situation like this. That's definitely good.
yeah,
But that's interesting that there's clearly some conflict within the sheriff's office about what happened.
yeah. Oh, 100%. And from what we can gather from people who work there, not a lot of people like Detective Try. It seems that he has an attitude problem. And
Detective Try, is that what you said?
yeah,
TRY, like
Jacob
Detective
Try,
Slaughter and Sheriff Slaughter and Detective Try.
TRI, actually.
TRI. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, all right. The names sometimes just always fit these kind of stories interestingly.
Yeah.
Um, what did they give you any kind of? I'm just interested. I don't want you to reveal too much because I don't want to get that person in trouble, especially if they're helping you out. But did they
Yeah.
reveal anything else about the inside workings of this sheriff's department?
They revealed a couple other things that I'm not going to mention quite yet. We need to dig into a couple more things. We have some FOIA requests that we're going to have to put in to get some information, and we're digging into the history of Jacob Try and Sheriff Slaughter. So there are some things that we're not going to divulge at this moment.
I feel like you ought to go by his first name, Sheriff Slaughter.
He
Like if
really
I were
should.
him, I'd go by his first name.
Sheriff Jesse. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
much better.
unless
That
his first
seems
name
way
was like
friendlier.
Murder, Sheriff Murder Slaughter, then I wouldn't go by his first name if that were his first name. So you have a couple clips that you sent me
Yeah.
that we can share. I have the first one I've pulled up here is just the season 1 trailer. Is it okay if we start with that one?
Oh yeah, let's go with the trailer
All
for
right,
sure.
let's share it. And it's a interesting story. And as Forrest Mommy echoed, or not echoed, she just said, I think it's great that you're getting involved up there to do something, and you're not. From what I know of you, you're not somebody who's just out to get police officers. You're somebody who is you don't like injustice.
I just
From
don't
what
like
I've seen you, I remember being at the Libertarian Georgia convention a year ago, almost in January. I think wasn't that in January or was it
Yeah,
February?
I think it was January.
I
Yeah.
can't believe that was a year ago. And I remember there were some people in across the way or across the hall from us who were talking about somebody had their children taken away or something, and you were like immediately on it trying to find out what happened with them. So
Yeah.
you're similar to me, and you don't like when you see injustices, and so you
100%.
took it upon yourself to do something about it, try to find out the truth, and that's I applaud that. That's awesome. And great work. And you guys should check out the podcast if you're interested. I know everybody is interested in the CEO United Health killer right now, which somebody said Fox News is saying he's mad because he couldn't get a trans surgery, which I'm like, are you sure that's what they said, dude? I don't know if that's what they said. I don't know. He does look pretty. He looks pretty. But nevertheless,
He's way too pretty to be a shooter. I'll say that.
way too pretty to be a shooter. Right. He should be flirting in like Buckhead, Atlanta with girls or whatever. But it's good to see when people take initiative to do things locally because local stuff does not get the attention. It doesn't drive the narrative. It doesn't occupy people's minds. And it's easier to have things slip under the radar if people like you don't see something and then do something. They say see something, say something. But, I say see something and then, I'm just going to look into it a little bit. And you didn't go in, having your mind made up. That's not the type of guy you are. You went in investigating and asking questions. So I think it's admirable. And
I just think it's necessary, man. Like the stuff that's going to affect you the most is the stuff that happens in your town or your neighborhood.
absolutely,
Like
totally.
it's idiotic for so many people to be so emotionally invested in national politics.
You
Like,
don't think that debating retards on Twitter and social media is the best way to spend your time?
I mean, I don't know. It depends on what kind of life you live. I mean, I'm not going to talk
Right.
to somebody else's time. If they've got all the time in the world, then
I
I
know. I'm
don't
not
know.
talking
That
about
might be
anybody
good.
specific at all. Don't worry about it.
I just, yeah, the doing things locally, it's going to affect you and your community and the people you love. Like that is the stuff
100%.
that
It's the
will,
most tangible impact that you can have on things that tangibly impact your life.
yes, 100%. Absolutely.
Here's the trailer for season 1. I love the way that you do this. You're so good at this stuff, man. Like I watched this and I was just like, man, I wish I could do that. Here it is.
Thanks, dude.
I
All right, I got
volume
one
all the way
subject.
started. Here we go.
Shots fired. I got one subject down. I've been hit in my left shoulder, 77 Wexford Lane.
Well, at around 5:30 p.m., we were called out here to Wexford Lane, the site of an apparent shooting.
Our deputy arrived on scene to serve a search warrant.
Mike was never on this warrant.
Michael Hansen, the suspect, pulled a firearm.
Mike had his hand in his pocket. Detective tried to jump the fence.
He went without backup.
The other deputies returning fire shot and killed the armed suspect.
There's actually a lot of things the investigation didn't look into.
Step off the property. Step off the property. What do you got there? Get your head. Fucking asshole.
You show me it's a good shoot, I get it. If not a good shoot, why does it take 3 months for you to clear up this investigation?
That's that ending line there. That's like right on point.
Yeah.
You guys aren't out to, if it was true self-defense, you actually, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you support being able to use firearms for self-defense regardless of who it is. Am I wrong?
100%. No matter who it is, cops are more than welcome to use their weapons in self-defense if the situation arises. 100%.
This just sounds like the targeting of these people, like they've been waiting for a reason, is what it's coming off to me as.
Dude, they've been labeled in files as being bad apples, as being they basically have little red flags next to their name, which already, like, first of all, denoting somebody as a bad apple or against the police, or just what do they call? They called her militant against the police.
They called
Noting
a
somebody that-
woman who they had for dog rescuing, and they said that there was dogs that were malnourished. She was found not guilty of eventually. That she was militant.
Yeah, militant against the police. Which denoting that in a file, first of all, is ridiculous, because that's all a matter of opinion. Like, somebody could just have had a bad day and a bad experience and said one thing, and then getting it noted in their file that they're militant against the cops is idiotic.
It's
but
like the
second,
Seinfeld thing. The doctors, they got a note, and every doctor knows. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
But second, if Try, who was part of this history with this woman and Michael Hansen, he knew about all of this. If he knows that they're militant, if he thinks they're militant against the cops and are a danger to police, in what world is it okay to show up without backup and without a warrant?
Totally.
It's not.
No. And the warrant issue that you guys were talking about, as I pull these other clips up, it was the way they were describing it, and the way you guys were talking about it was, before COVID, you had to show a warrant by law up there, a physical warrant. But then when COVID came, because everything went digital during COVID, as we know, that there was some sort of like, they could do it digitally somewhat. It wasn't clear to me exactly how they could do it.
They can acquire it digitally. So they used to have to go to the judge's house to get him to sign it, or wherever the judge was, to get him to sign the warrant. But now they can acquire the warrant digitally, but they still have to present a physical copy of the warrant.
So even though it's showing on the phone, because wasn't the guy saying he has the information on his phone or something like that?
He was saying that, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not convinced at all.
But even doing that is not by law up there, not enough.
Correct.
Okay.
Not even a little bit.
And obviously the defense brought that up. Oh, wait a minute, there was no defense.
Yeah, exactly.
During this weird
sham trial, man.
It's very shady. It makes me wonder what's the history of other hearings like this. These I keep forgetting the name of the coroners. What? Inquests.
I know. I've forgotten that term a million times.
It sounds very epic. The coroner's inquest. Sounds like a movie or something like that about pirates.
It does. That is.
I just wonder what the history of that is, and I'm also my head is going to. Have you guys done any newspaper archive searches in that town with the focusing on the names of the sheriffs who've been there or maybe lived in that town for a while, combined with the names of the woman and the man? Because I'm just wondering about the relationship history, and if they're older, and it's a town that is not a large town, they might. I don't know. I just know that newspaper archives are a wealth of information that people it doesn't show up on the regular searches.
Dude, we do have people doing that, and it just takes a very long time.
It does.
And a lot of the records aren't readily available. So,
right.
Yeah, we absolutely. Kevin Leatherbarrow, that dude is an animal.
Research animal.
If you watch the show, I mean, the amount of work that he puts into this, like I think I put in a ton of work. The amount of work that he puts into this research and investigation is insane. I mean, the guy
tell. I mean, you guys had the documents, and you guys were all familiar with them. And as someone who's read many court documents, because that's where you got to go to find like information, especially when mainstream stuff where people just don't know what they're talking about. And you're like, look, here's the court documents. It can be thousands of pages at times to search through, and they even sometimes make them unsearchable. So they'll make them PDFs, but not like normal PDFs. So you can't actually search them because they'll make them some of them image files, and they do these things to try to obfuscate. If I said that word right,
obfuscate.
To impede the investigation of citizens.
Yes.
Maybe is a better way to put it. So like, I don't know, that's just as really, it just sounds like it sounds like a history of like war. Not war, but just there's something there for like, it almost makes me think of family, the old Westerns where families are fighting.
Dude, that's exactly what I was about to say. Doesn't it kind of feel like an old Western movie, but where all the citizens are in the present age, but all the sheriffs are in the old Western time?
Kind of, yeah. That's what it sounds like that. It sounds like there was some sort of vendetta there, and it's like looking for a reason, because I just don't understand why somebody who's not even involved, with the eagerness of pulling a weapon and hopping a fence that you don't have to hop. It's all very. I'm glad you guys are looking into this. Now let me get those other clips up that you got. So, clip one. What was the introduce us?
Clip one. Let me go make sure which clip is which. So this is us. You see the end of our reenactment, and then this is us showing our audio analysis that there's still dispute about. The sheriff's office has stated multiple times that there were 8 shots fired. There were 9 shots fired. And they stated multiple times that Mike Hansen was shooting at Detective Try after Try shot first, which is incorrect, which you'll see once that gets popped up. So yeah, this is our lead into our audio analysis, which kind of led us down this whole. This is what ultimately got me fully involved.
Repeatedly asks to see the warrant while Sergeant Try.
It's all good.
All right,
Mike repeatedly asks.
Can you hear that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike repeatedly asks to see the warrant while Sergeant Try refuses to show him unless he steps off the property. Mike begins to walk away. Try jumps the fence and asks Mike, "What do you got there?" Sergeant Try then fires his weapon. The magazine malfunctions after the shot goes off, and he attempts to clear his gun as Mike says, "Fucking asshole," and pulls out a snub-nosed revolver from his pocket and begins firing at Try, hitting him in the shoulder. Try clears his malfunction and fires back, ultimately hitting Mike, who continues to fire his weapon as he falls to the ground. Sergeant Try then retreats to his car and calls for help. Let me reiterate here that this is the official story. Much of it is correct. One crucial detail is an outright lie. Sergeant Try fires a Glock 9mm from very close to the recorder. Mike Hansen fires a .38 revolver from about 8 yards away. They have distinctive audio signatures, as you can see. What we are able to prove is that Sergeant Try fired his first shot, took 2.16 seconds to clear his magazine, and then fired his second shot before Mike was able to get a single shot off. Mike subsequently fired, followed by 2 more shots from Try, followed by Mike emptying his revolver as he assumedly falls to the ground. This sequence of events strongly suggests that Mike didn't have his gun out until after he was shot at the first time, leading one to question why Sergeant Try pulled his weapon first.
So this calls into question the as I'm floating over the fence theory. I saw the weapon in slow motion and I am John Wick.
Yeah.
And therefore I pulled out my gun. It sounds totally like a cover up. Exactly.
It's insane. So all the accounts of Mike are, so he grew up shooting from when he was a kid, went into the military. He is a dead shot. Like
yeah.
If he had his revolver out, the length of time that 2.16 seconds is, if he had his weapon out, Detective Try would be dead. Because there's no way on earth that from 8 yards away, 24 feet, that Mike Hansen wouldn't
have been able to shoot that guy.
It's insane.
And what you guys are saying is that this guy shot at him first twice.
Yep, and hit it. We think he hit him both times. We think he shot him in the back the first time.
And then he shot him 5 times afterwards when he was on the ground?
Through the back of his neck and out through the front, at which point Mike basically said, fucking asshole, and turned around. And that's when we think he pulled his revolver and got shot a second time through the chest and out the back, at which point he immediately fired and Try fired 2 more times. And then Mike emptied his revolver basically into the ground, we think.
Let me make sure I have this clear. So that they wanted him to submit, and he turned around to walk back towards the house. And when he turned around to walk back towards the house, at least this is what it sounds like, the cop decided that he needed to jump over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of jumping over the fence, he says that the guy walking back towards his house, he saw him go and reach and pull his gun out. His back is to him. This guy's back is to him.
Yeah.
And that he is saying that guy whose back is to him pulled his weapon out and shot at him first, and then
so he actually said that Try fired. So Try said that he himself fired first.
Oh, so he admitted to firing the first one, but then he said,
while he's fixing his malfunction, he said Mike is firing at him, but that is incorrect.
But he's admitting to firing on a guy whose back is to him first.
So he never said that his back was to him, but you can hear it in the audio that Mike started walking away. You can hear the audio go like this. And so,
right. Yeah.
You can hear that exact situation happen.
The audio from the police officer, you can hear the distance getting further away.
Yes.
Okay. See, that's the type of analysis that you're not going to get in a coroner's inquest.
Exactly.
I don't know. The audio must have shortened out. Like there's no audio designers in there pointing this out in this inquest that they must have forgotten to ask them to come to. Yes, that's such a great observation.
And they still claim that that there were only 8 shots total fired when there are 9. So where's that 9th shot at? And why are they not admitting to the 9th shot? I don't know.
What was written on the bullet casings?
What was freaking written on those things, man?
There's no accountability, regardless of what actually happened here. Like, even if we assume the best of the police, what is evident is that there is zero accountability that would ever enable the public to find out what actually did happen. So it's a trust us, because there's only coroner's inquest queries, whatever the fuck it is. That's what it seems to me. That's very frustrating.
Dude, it's extremely frustrating. And like all of this could have been avoided if he'd have just presented him the warrant. Like if he'd have just waited 30 more minutes and shown up with the warrant, Mike would have gotten off the property because he had done so in the past.
Right. So they've had interactions in the past. So that's a base. So there's a history there where the cops have come there and he's been like, you got the warrant, and he stood down.
Yep. 100%.
And what are those incidences?
Same thing. So in 2020, there was a fire on her property, which led to the investigation into the animal shelter. And so he showed up in the middle of it, and they said, we have a warrant. You can't come onto the property right now. And he said, okay, and left. So like, this isn't the first time they presented him a warrant. Or this is the first, actually, this is the time they didn't present him a warrant. When they did present him a warrant, he left.
So this this backs up the idea, what you guys were saying earlier, that this guy is somebody who he worked in policing throughout his life, an older guy, that he knew what his rights were because he has exhibited this behavior before when the police have done it correctly. But this time there was definitely it was definitely vague about like he thought he was just following his rights, just like in the past. But this officer decided to do so. We have somebody named Justin here who says Mike never went looking for trouble. I'm so upset. I don't know if Justin is in Montana and knows the
He's
people
part of the Hanson family. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow. So that, yeah, this is, man, this is extraordinary that there was no further investigation until you guys got involved about this. So what is supposed to be the accountability for this coroner's inquest to police? Do you have any idea? Because it just seems so blatantly like
I'm not really sure if the actual function is supposed to be to look into the police, look into the officer that committed the shooting
by the government's to look into the police.
By the government's district attorney.
Right.
So that clearly is never going to happen. So I don't understand why it was set up this way. There needs to be some type of third party that comes in to investigate shootings like this, because
a non-government, an NGO needs to be looking into it. But
Is
no, somebody outside the government
NGO
needs
just
to
a
be
GO?
for accountability.
Like, I feel like an NGO just crossed off the end, and that's exactly what it is.
It's extraordinary. So I'm starting to think now of all, because I've lived in some small towns. I've lived in Milledgeville, Georgia. It's a very small town, very, very corrupt, like a lot of crimes in that town, at least what we're told are crimes. And Jacksonville is not a small town, but Snellville, Georgia, I've lived in. And I'm just starting to wonder now what type of things got brushed under the rug in these towns across the country.
Yeah.
You know?
Dude. Yeah. Georgia, I mean, Georgia has so many things that are swept under the rug. Like it's wild. And like, this is one of the biggest things. Like, this is why electing a good sheriff is one of the best things you can do for your community. Like, a good sheriff can enforce laws that are constitutional and tell his officers to not enforce certain laws. And so having a good sheriff that knows what your rights are and will instruct his deputies to adhere to those rights, that is such an important thing to do.
Has to be a brave person because of the pressures that are going to be put upon them.
100%. Yeah.
I have a friend who he probably would have a lot. I'll send him this podcast, see what his thoughts are, but he is he's a former police officer who ended up out of the police force because he exposed corruption that was going on within the police force that he worked in, and it was in Georgia. And it's unbelievable what he told us, what we learned from him, and what they tried to do to him afterwards because he was getting the word out about it. It's wild. And so they have this, some of them anyway, this system of reinforcement that makes it very difficult unless you are someone who's got brass balls and is willing to be that guy who's like, my job is not to make the police force look good. My job is to protect the rights of individuals,
yes,
even if they may or may not be guilty of something.
Dude, that's one of the biggest problems with with Sheriff Slaughter is he has political aspirations.
That, oh my goodness. Are you
He's-
serious?
He's going to be running for governor at some point.
Oh, so that right there, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So
And
he
not to
can't
mention,
have
5 years
something
ago,
like
he was
this
still-
under his watch.
Correct. Yeah. 5 years ago, he was a Democrat. And then he switched to Republican, running as a constitutional sheriff.
That's a total politician. He switched from a Democrat to somebody running as a constitutional
Yeah.
a sheriff.
Yeah.
And how bad did he win?
He won handily.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's, dude.
And this comment right here, try went with intention. That is a theory that a bunch of people have that I can't disprove at this point in time.
You know, from what I'm hearing here with the history of these people were clearly a problem. These people who, especially this guy who had libertarian-like leanings,
Yeah.
who know their rights, has a history of policing, seems to be a guy who's, to me, he comes off as what you're describing as an old school guy who knows his rights. He says, "Get off my property unless you're following the law," and he's somebody you don't want to mess with.
Yes.
But who follows the law? Who's so people give Trump support. So a lot of Trump supporters, there are some people who supported Trump who are idol worshiping. But I think the majority of people who supported Trump are people who know very well that the media wants to make them look crazy. And so they are very guarded and very aware of what they can and cannot do. This guy sounds to me like someone like that who is, if you needed to go do something, like I want to go protest or I want to go make my voice heard, who's going to say, look, here's what you can and can't do, and make sure you do it in a way where you're not going to get messed with. Like he sounds like a guy who'd be a great advisor for people who want to pursue liberty.
Yeah. From all accounts, he was exactly that, and was a guy who was quiet, kept to himself, didn't want any trouble. That's exactly right. Like he definitely skewed very much towards liberty and freedom.
Mike spent hours daily reading his Bible.
Yes, he did. I have.
He's not somebody who wanted somebody to die.
No, dude. I have one of his notebooks that is just filled with Bible verses that he'd written down to make sure that he was looking at that every day and knew the scripture backwards and forwards. He was an ordained minister. Like he's not somebody out there looking to kill people.
Is Sheriff Slaughter, is he from that town? Has he been there a while?
That's a good question. I know he's been there a while. I'm not positive if he is originally from Great Falls, but he's definitely been there a long time.
I just wonder what, if he went there with intent. I know we're speculating, and I don't want you to get you involved speculating, because you're doing, as I always do with Garland, I'm like, I'll do the speculating. So you're doing you're in the real evidence, and you guys need to check out the podcast too, because they do go through this court hearing that we've been talking about, the coroner's inquisition, and they go through it very meticulously, and it's revealing. It really is revealing about what power can get away with when there's nothing there to question it, or at least say, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. But it just the speculation to me sounds like there was maybe a history there. Like, what's the history? Was this guy worried about what, somebody who knows or who speaks the truth, or who, I don't know. I don't want to say anybody's going to do anything, but this guy's going to run for governor.
Yeah.
If he's going to run for governor, and there's speculation that somebody went there with intent, this is crazy, man.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, dude. Like it should never have happened. And that whole day, February 23rd of this year, just every step of the way could have avoided tragedy, but the cop refused to even slow down for 2 seconds. I mean, he did so many illegal things. We denote at least 10 to 12 laws that he broke just within the span of a few hours.
What are a few of them? Easy to remember.
He trespassed on private property without a warrant. He effectively stole Pam's car by having it impounded without a warrant. He committed perjury half a dozen to a dozen times while on the stand. What else did he do? He did not follow any protocol. He did not go back to get his body cam, to get any non-lethal weapons.
Almost like he didn't want it on body cam.
It's almost like that. Didn't even have a car cam like he was supposed to.
Because he was not. I mean, I guess the unmarked cars probably have body or car cams also, but he
Yeah,
was in
they
an
should.
unmarked car.
Yeah.
Which that's another. Maybe he was just in his unmarked car. He would argue, but that's also.
He was at lunch at home when he got this call.
He
So
said, "I better take my unmarked car to go address this issue about the
he's a
kitty
detective.
litter that had been bought."
He's a detective, so there's a good chance that they do patrol every now and then in their personal cars. So he's
Isn't
not
that
a
what you said?
uniformed
They
officer.
claimed they were originally doing was just patrolling.
Originally, what he claimed is that he was there to serve a search warrant. Originally, that's what multiple people have claimed, but then during his testimony, he was there to do surveillance. The thing is, during his testimony, he also
illegal
said,
kitty litter.
yeah, he also said it was impossible to do surveillance at this property because it was such a wide open field. So he was there to do surveillance, but he couldn't do surveillance. And so his testimony is a mess of contradictions and lies.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're protecting him. This is, yeah. Jake, those measures you're taking, which are legal, very, very legal, against people messing with you for investigating this, I'm glad you're taking them because when you throw in the wrinkle that this guy's running for governor, that to me is.
I don't know if he is, but that is definitely.
If he has political aspirations of any kind.
Yeah.
You know, to me, a sheriff, I know you got to run for sheriff in a lot of places, but like political aspirations at all are, there's people who run for office. So Forrest Mommy, who's watching, she ran for office, but she's not somebody I see as having political aspirations. She's somebody I see as I'm tired of the government messing with us, so I'm going to run and call attention to stuff. And she did very well.
She did great. Yeah.
I mean, unbelievably great. Shows what you can do at the local level. But people who go on this kind of directed path of I'm going to do this, then I'm going to get this office and go to that office, and I clearly want to be if your life's aspiration is to be a politician, and you have the mentality of politicians, which quite often is very psychopathy tendencies.
Yes.
Then there's kind of the ends justify the means type mentality. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but I'm saying I don't like that this guy has political aspirations. And
no, dude,
yeah,
if you start treating it like any other job, like you're trying to move up the ranks in a Fortune 500 company, like of course you're going to do whatever it takes to get there. Like you're not in it for the quote unquote correct reasons, which are serving, like the one reason is serving the people that elected you. Like that's literally all you're there to do. And yes, it is on YouTube. The first 3 episodes are out on YouTube at this moment. 4th episode will come out this month. And so like, if you treat this like it's your life's calling to rise up in the ranks and to improve your job and to move forward, there at some point you'll be presented with a decision where you have to choose between your aspirations and what you're supposed to be fighting for. And I mean, everybody's human. Most people are going to choose the selfish, self-interested portion, the self-interested choice, because that's how humans are.
And they dangle all that stuff in front of you if they think they can compromise you.
Yep. And so that seems to be what's happening. I mean, he appeared in a few political commercials this year.
Oh, man. So I'm definitely going to research him now that you've told me all that. I'm interested in it now for sure. You have another clip here that you shared with me. This is sorry. So what's this clip?
So these are his two of his sons. It's Arliss on the left and Tim on the right. And basically I believe we're just talking about who he was and as a person and what I think we go into a little bit of the laws and code and stuff that Tribe broke.
Great. As far as who drew first or who shot first, I don't know. I do know that my dad didn't make any unreasonable requests. From knowing him personally, I know that my dad wasn't aggressive, and he wasn't trying to escalate the situation.
He just wasn't one to go out and start trouble. It was not in his nature to go out looking for trouble.
So Try testified that your dad approached him. He saw him sitting in the car and started coming out towards the gate to talk to him. Would that be something that your dad would do, or would he just go about his business?
Well, I mean, if you're sitting by the front gate and there's not another house around for, what's going on,
Like half a mile to the nearest house.
From what I understood is for a while he thought that was me down there getting tools for my truck because that's what I was doing, working on the truck. He thought it was somebody giving me a ride over or something sitting there, and then he realized, and then that's when he went down to, hey, can we help you? What's going on here? Who are you? And that's, to me, how he would have went down there.
That makes sense. So I didn't realize it was half a mile to the nearest house.
Dude, it's probably not half a mile, but it's hundreds of yards in the middle of a field. Yeah, there's nothing else.
So it's normal if somebody's outside your gate, especially in an unmarked car.
Yeah, you're going to walk down to see who it is.
What's going on? Just because that's not common to have. It's not like you're in a neighborhood and somebody pulls in the wrong driveway to turn around.
Correct. Yeah.
Justin says our list looks broken.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the vibe I got from
him. How undressed cop or whatever, just in civilian clothes. Yeah.
He's in civilian clothes also?
Yep, civilian clothes.
Yeah. He drives right up onto the gate and wonders why Mike came out. And
who's that?
That's Kevin Leatherbarrow. He's the bulldog.
To say who's on the property. He's in an unmarked vehicle. He should have never been there that day. He didn't follow any protocols whatsoever in his post certifications. Probably all the protocols that are involved. Okay, you never go into a search warrant or go try to do this without backup. I mean, that's just rule number one. So he should have never been there in the first place. He had 10 days to serve this warrant. There was no urgency, and he gave up his element of surprise.
So why was the priority to be there so shortly after hearing about it, so shortly after the warrant, despite the limitations with staffing on that day?
As a reminder of what we're asserting, here's the graphic from last week's episode. In addition to these 10 violations, we would like to reiterate that Detective Try had 10 whole days to serve the warrant, instead serving it by himself within an hour. We believe this was extremely poor judgment on his part. Poor judgment that continues to present itself the more we've looked into this case.
Yeah.
Detective Try way too hard, maybe. Because that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
That should not have happened. And going back to the fact of the distance between houses, there's nobody around. There's no witnesses around.
Yep. And he's been there
not a lot of cameras around.
He's been there before multiple times. So he knew all of this going in, and he still chose to go there. That was another thing. Not once did he identify himself as a police officer. Not once.
Really?
Yeah.
What did he? So who knows if this is somebody bullshitting and messing with him?
Yeah, he had a vest on, but the vest wasn't his normal police vest.
Right, and typically you're supposed to identify who you are, show your badge, and make sure.
Yeah, during the testimony, he said, "It's known that I'm a police officer."
Everybody just knows it.
I guess so. Yeah, everybody just knows it and remembers face.
But even if it's known that he's a police officer, if he shows up somewhere in an unmarked car, not wearing his police uniform, that he's not always a cop. If he just walks in gym shorts and a tank top to a Starbucks, am I supposed to drop to the ground just because I know that he's a police officer? No, you're supposed to give, regardless of if it's no, and that evidence can only be accepted because there's no one there to challenge it at this coroner's inquest. But that's a preposterous thing to accept into the court as something that's reasonable. Any opposing attorney would say objection. That's just not. That's crazy.
Yeah, which is exactly what we did in the last episode. Basically, anytime they lied, we'd cut in, say objection. This is what should have happened.
Right, but there was no accountability there. That's wild, man. I'm now interested in not only in the history of this, but the history of all of these inquests with the coroner that have gone on. Why does the coroner get the title here?
That's a great question.
You know?
I don't really know, because the coroner's testimony was the shortest one. It took just a few minutes just to present a couple things. Like it was strange.
They give the cause of death and the bullets and stuff like that. So that's somebody also who you can kind of manipulate a trial if you get the coroner to say what you want them to say.
Well, yeah, that, and they had a presentation. So they had a PowerPoint that showed slides. They showed the Montana code annotated. Okay. They highlighted the parts that they wanted the jury to focus on, but they left unhighlighted all the parts that would incriminate them, or just left them out entirely. They excluded entire parts of the code that they violated.
That is so crazy,
dude. And we have the PowerPoint. It's not like they can hide.
You guys can highlight the other side of it.
Yeah, we literally have the PowerPoint.
Jake, this is a wild story.
Yeah.
I'm glad, like I'm inspired by the fact that you guys are investigating it, and I hope you guys are safe about doing it. This is if what seems to be true, like some sort of cover up is going on because of for whatever history or vendetta that might have been there, and there's people there willing to carry this out. Then I want you guys to be very safe about your investigation. They could clear this up. It feels like the police department could say, "Oh, there's this speculation going on. Here is statements and evidence that we can put forward to clear this speculation up." Doesn't seem like that's going on.
We've reached out to them many times, and they have not responded once. In fact, they're lawyering up.
Wow. Justin Hansen says, "Appreciate what you guys are doing."
Thanks.
And I'm sorry what happened. Justin, this sounds like it's a tragedy that shouldn't have never have occurred. And I hope you guys get to the bottom of it. Jake, is there anything else you want to tell people about before we get out of here?
Just like the end goal of this is to have a Montana judge assemble a grand jury, approve the assembly of a grand jury, which will be a grand jury is an investigation into the shooting by the citizens. It is not this coroner's inquest garbage. So that is the primary goal that we have, so that these people can actually be presented with a real case, so that these officers can stand for what they've done.
What needs to happen for that to happen?
We have to get a judge on board, which in Montana is extremely difficult. There's a short list that we have. We can't reveal those names right now, but it seems like it's going to happen. So we're fingers crossed. It's a grand jury has not been called in 35 years. And so we're hoping that we reignite that part of the justice system, so that it can be actual citizens who determine whether or not the people who serve them are held accountable.
Yeah. I mean, people voted this sheriff in.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Do you guys have any lawyers who are willing to help out?
We have some legal consultants right now, and we've definitely been in touch with lawyers who have been associated with both of these cases before, that are helping us out quite a bit. So, yeah. But I mean, other than that, like Cascade Effect, that's the primary show I'm working on right now. My network, Peaceful Sea Network, we have a bunch of shows. We have some movies, documentaries, all that kind of stuff. So you can go check out peacefulsea.network, and that's where That's where the home is for all of this stuff. We have the Dollar Media Club, $12 a year gets you access to the Discord and discounts on merchandise and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, you can go check that out.
Fantastic. Check all that out. Check this documentary out. Follow Jake and all the work he does. He does great work, especially for those who are libertarian minded or in the Libertarian Party, but just all around a good guy who pursues justice. Is there any parting advice that you would give to anybody who is inspired by what you're doing and would like to maybe pursue something that they see as an injustice in their town?
Oh man. First, take it slow. Just do some research before you get too involved in something, because there are lots of people claiming injustice everywhere at all points. Everybody wants to play the victim nowadays. So just make sure that what you're looking into actually has substance, because there are plenty of people who claim bad things happen to them when they caused them in the first place. So just take it slow. Don't get discouraged. It takes a long time and it's exhausting. So just be prepared for that.
It's the real work that they don't ever promote in mainstream news with all the chaos going on, but it's the real impact that you can have. And I love your approach. Be patient, ask questions, and call attention to things that need attention. Call to them. Thanks for joining me, Jake.
Absolutely, man. And anybody out there who wants to get involved with what we're doing or start their own thing, you can reach out to me, jake@peacefulsea.network. Just email me.
So anybody's got tips, might be in Montana, wants to contact you. That's where they need to contact you?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Fantastic.
For sure.
All right, propagandafight.com is my website. You guys can check that out and check out all of Jake's work. And if you got any tips, contact him. Thank you guys for watching, for interacting in the chats. Jake, it was very interesting, fantastic work, and we'll have you back on soon.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it, man.
You guys have a fantastic rest of y'all's day.